What's up? Thanks for tuning in to episode number 7 of the DJJJ show. I am your host, DJJJ, also known as John. My normal co-host, Wally, my Golden Retriever, is not in the studio yet tonight. He is extra tired, so I'm letting him sleep in the house while I get the show started. Maybe he will come out a little later, but I bet he'll still be sleeping if he does, because he is just that tired. Anyway, this is a old school radio show type of podcast where I'm just playing records, shooting the shit, talking about music, talking about records, kind of whatever else comes to mind. But so far haven't had a lot of guests on the show. Hopefully I'll have some more people to talk to in the future. But for now, just kind of keeping it all about the music and just hanging out, talking about whatever I want. But there's no one I'd rather spend this time with than you, my listeners. I'm having a great time making the show. And yeah, I'm ready to get into some music tonight. I have a monster of a track for you. It's called Snowmobile by Dennis Farnan, and it was recorded in 1974. It's on this compilation called The Library Archive, Funk, Jazz, Beats, and Soundtracks from the Vaults of Cavendish Music. And that was reissued by BBE Records in 2017. But it's all from the Cavendish Music Library, which is like production music, library music that was made usually in like the 60s and 70s, but it still happens today. But it was made for commercial purposes, for licensing for like film and TV and radio. And besides being like sample gold for hip hop and electronic music, they're usually really great recordings that were just extremely hard to find for a long time, and now are being reissued a lot. So anyway, I'll shut up about it. I know you can always learn about production music and library music on your own, but you gotta hear this track. So here we go with Snowmobile by Dennis Farnan on the DJJJ show.
stranger's touch. There is no breathing. There are no beating hearts. The tone of acid that never spoke. The sleeping partner never woke. I spend my seconds, but time is lost in you. And when we both remember, make no sign. Evidence that you were ever mine. We'll pose apart for all the world to see. When I'm alone, I find a crowded place. For cries always remind me of your face. Stay over there for no one else but me. As we convulsions, we never kissed. There were no pulses in these pink wrists. Intangible across an abstract bend. Beyond the limit of shape and self, promised to visit as someone else. My past is only one memory I shared. And when we both remember, make no sign. Evidence that you were ever mine. We'll pause apart for all the world to see. When I'm alone, I find a crowded place. For cries always remind me of your face. Stay over there for no one else but me. There's just so many times that I forget. I need to hope I haven't found you yet. Stay over there for no one else but me.
Hey, welcome back to the show. My name's John, also known as DJJJ, and this is the DJJJ show, episode number 7. I did get Wally, my dog, from inside the house during that break, so Wally's hanging out. Although I was right, he is just sleeping on the floor, as dogs tend to do a lot. He's a golden retriever, about 8 or 9 years old at this point, I think, and he sleeps a lot. He doesn't seem to mind though. We take a lot of walks and take him to play with other dogs, so he's always got some energy, but usually out here in the studio, he's just ready to chill just like I am. The last song that you heard was by Poison Girlfriend, and it was called Nobody, and that's off of the Heisei no Oto compilation on Music from Memory, subtitled Japanese Left Field Pop from the CD Age, 1989 to 1996. And that compilation is pure gold. If you like Japanese music, left field pop, stuff from the 80s and 90s, experimental pop from that time, that one is definitely worth your time. Music from Memory is always putting out good albums, a lot of reissue stuff of like 80s and 90s kind of forgotten sounds from around the world, but they always tend to have some new releases too that are worth checking out. Anyway, if you haven't heard it, Music from Memory out of Amsterdam, check out that label. Definitely, at least the Heisei no Oto compilation that I was playing that song from. And then, maybe you'll just go down the rabbit hole from there and check out all kinds of stuff they've put out. Definitely solid label. Before that, we heard Dennis Farnan with Snowmobile. That was that library jazz funk song. I love that one. It's so smooth and chill, and then just kind of blasting at you out of nowhere. That big band horn sound, like some 007 stuff. Anyway, me and Wally are just chilling out here playing records for episode 7. We don't have a guest or anything, so I think I'm just going to play some more music, maybe a couple of spoken word interludes or something. I've still been just really into Alan Watts, listening to Alan Watts. Also some Terrence McKenna. I usually just like hearing what those guys have to say for a few minutes, so maybe I'll throw some of those in. But honestly, right now, I don't even know what I'm going to play. I'll just throw some more records at you, some of my favorite stuff of the current moment. And I imagine if you're still listening to the show at episode 7, you already know that that's what I do, and you like the records I play. So why don't we get into more of that now? Thanks for listening as always, and here comes some more music.
Now, this whole intellectual adventure in exteriorization of ideas is entirely an aesthetic adventure. Until very recently, utility is only a secondary consideration. The real notion is a kind of seizure by the tremendum, by the other, which then forces us to take up matter, clay, bone, flint, and put it through a mental process where we then excrete it as objects that have lodged within them ideas. This seems to be the special, unique, transcendental function of the human animal, is the production and condensation of ideas. And what made it possible for the human animal is language. If you're seeking the thumbprint of the transcendental on the myriad phenomena that compose life on this planet, to my mind, the place to look is human language. Human language represents an ontological break of major magnitude with anything else going on this planet. I mean, yes, bees dance and dolphins squeak and chimpanzees do what they do, but it's a hell of a step from there to Wallace Stevens, let alone William Shakespeare. Language is the unique province of human beings, and language is the unique tool of the artist. The artist is the person of language. And I've, given a lot of thought to this because the work that I've done with psilocybin mushrooms and the observations of psychedelic plant use in the Amazon centered around ayahuasca lead me to the conclusion that it is the synergy and catalysis of language that lies behind not only the emergence of human consciousness out of animal organization, but then its ability to set a course for a transcendental dimension and pursue that course against all the vicissitudes of biology and history over 10 or 15,000 years. Language has made us more than a group of pack-hunting monkeys. It's made us a group of pack-hunting monkeys with a dream. And the fallout from that dream has given us our glory and our shame, our weaponry, our technology, our art, our hopes, our fears. All of this arises out of our own ability to articulate and to communicate with each other. And I use this in the broadest sense. I mean, for me, the glory of the human animal is cognitive activity, song, dance, sculpture, poetry, all of these cognitive activities, when we participate in them, we cross out of the domain of animal organization and into the domain of a genuine relationship to the transcendent. As you know, shamans in all times and places gain their power through relationships with helping spirits, which they sometimes call ancestors, sometimes call nature spirits, but somehow the acquisition of a relationship to a disincarnate intelligence is the precondition for authentic shamanism. Now, nowhere in our world do we have an institution like that we do not consider pathological, except in the now very thinly spread tradition of the muse, that artists, alone among human beings, are given permission to talk in terms of my inspiration, or a voice which told me to do this, or a vision that must be realized. The thin line, the thin thread of shamanic descent into our profane world leads through the office of the artist. And so, if society is to somehow take hold of itself at this penultimate moment, as we literally waver on the brink of planetary extinction, then the artist, like Ariadne following her thread out of the labyrinth, is going to have to follow this shamanic thread back through time.
Smettila di ascoltare, ti sfrutteranno, ti sfrutteranno. 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 Smettila di ascoltare, ti sfrutteranno, ti sfrutteranno.
Well, hey, welcome back to the DJJJ show. That was a long, strange trip there through some recorded lecture of Terence McKenna and some music that I threw under that for you, and tried to give the music some spots of its own there too. But yeah, that last song you heard was Silvia Torozzi with Domina, and then kind of peppered throughout that Terence McKenna speech there was Matthew Young, some excerpts from his song The Forest of Lilacs. Let me see. That's off of the Recurring Dreams album. It's a really long track, so I just used part of it there. And that was recently reissued by Drag City. That's a 1981 kind of new agey dungeon synth almost kind of album. It's ambient, it's dark, and yeah, I mean, if it seemed like part of that was just silence, that is that song. There are some like really quiet sounds in there, but yeah, in places it's so quiet that like the cracks and pops on my copy of the record are louder than the music itself. But hopefully you enjoyed that. And then to start off that little block there, you heard The Hard Workers with Ayoba Yo, and that's off of a compilation on Rush Hour called Peninsula, The Rise of Electronic Dance Music in South Africa, 1988 to 1990. Very good stuff. Yeah, it's an interesting kind of micro-genre in South Africa from that time period. And great compilation, so check that one out, Peninsula. That was a gift from my good buddy Dan that I used to work with at the record store. So Dan, if you hear this, shout out, dude. Thanks for the records recently that you sent me. You're an awesome dude to know. And all of you who are listening are my friends, whether I know you in real life or not. And I'm DJJJ, also known as John Rogers. I am really kind of feeling some of these songs and this just meditative sort of Terence McKenna speech, and as you know, on some other shows I've had Alan Watts talking in places instead of playing music. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. I don't know how much of that I'm really going to do on this show, but so far it's been kind of a lot. So hopefully if you hate it, you can skip over those parts, and maybe we'll do more of that in the future. But until I have more guests and more interviews on the show, I kind of feel like it's nice to hear someone else's voice other than just mine from time to time. So those dudes are kind of, 20th century philosophy, far out, psychedelic adventurers, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. I think Terence McKenna, especially some of the stuff he has to say in that excerpt where he's talking about language and how it kind of creates meaning, and it's what sets humans apart in the grand scheme of things. I think he's really onto something there. There's a lot of great stuff to listen to by him. I know he's kind of known for his psychedelic drug research, but he's a really interesting speaker as well. Just kind of talking about the nature of reality and human history and evolution and kind of how we got to where we are. And I like his reverence for artists and musicians, that's kind of a shamanic impulse in modern society that people, as artists kind of go into hidden realms and pull out meaning and share ideas through the creation of their art. Anyway, I know I'm rambling, and you already listened to him say all that, but I really found it interesting, and I find it encouraging as well, because I think, artists and musicians have a tendency to downplay significance. I know there's a lot of egocentric artists out there too, but especially at my age, getting into my late 30s, it's kind of like, yeah, that's fun, but what do you really do? And for me, it's like, being a musician is something that really means something. Being an artist really means something, and your job sometimes it's just your job, but who you really are has to do with your other pursuits and what you want to be doing and what you want to find out about yourself and the world around you. Anyway, I know you can hear more of that whenever you want, and you can look up Terence McKenna lectures for yourself, but it was a nice meditation for today's show. And yeah, this is episode number 7 of DJJJ Show. I think I'm going to go ahead and play you some more music, maybe some Alan Watts. I'll come back right at the end of today's episode to tell you what I played and sign off from there. But anyway, thanks for listening. Hit me up on Instagram if you want to talk or have a question or something like that. My name on there is Junraw, Junraw. And yeah, let's get into some more music now.
سمي بيني طيب تثبت ويني سبلو مدحنيت ليل الليل فقري مسايني سمي بيني طيب تثبت ويني سيخي مدحنيت ليل الليل سمي بيني عقلي تصبر عيني سري مدحنيت ليل البيت سمي بيني عقلي تصبر عيني سري مدحنيت ليل البيت
welcome back to the show. I'm DJJJ. That last song that you heard was Teams versus Star Slinger, the Yes Strut. And before that, I played OASI with Il Cavaliere Azzurro. And that OASI record is a great reissue of an Italian album that was originally created as a soundtrack for a theatrical performance. But I really like that whole record. That the label that's on Suave does a lot of cool reissues of Italian avant-garde records like that. Some of them get pretty far out. I think that one's pretty nice. That melodic vocal that's on that track is one of my favorite parts of that whole record. But yeah, really good stuff. Check out that Suave label if you're into, experimental music. And the other song was Teams versus Star Slinger. It's like a collaborative album, and that was also a gift from my buddy Dan. That was a record I wasn't familiar with that he kind of threw my way because he knew I liked that stuff. Anyway, that's going to just about do it for episode number 7 of the DJJJ show. I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with Wally and me on tonight's episode. And we are going to take you out with one more song and a little talk by Alan Watts. I promise it'll be worth sticking around for, kind of on the question of why don't you know what you really want in life? So it's something I think about a lot, and he's got some great thoughts on the subject. This last track of music that I will kind of transition into that little lecture is going to be a track by the artist Manta, and the song is called Grid. Enjoy. Thanks again.
Yeah. what you want, you've reached the state of desirelessness. When you really don't know. But you see, there's a beginning stage of not knowing, and there's an ending stage of not knowing. In the beginning stage, you don't know what you want because you haven't thought about it, or you've only thought superficially. And then when somebody forces you to think about it and go through and say, yeah, I think I'd like this, I think I'd like that, I think I'd like the other, that's the middle stage. Then you get beyond that. Say, is that what I really want? In the end you say, no, I don't think that's it. I might be satisfied with it for a while, and I wouldn't turn my nose up at it, but it's not really what I want. Why don't you really know what you want? 2 reasons that you don't really know what you want. Number 1, you have it. Number 2, you don't know yourself, because you never can. The Godhead is never an object of its own knowledge. Just as a knife doesn't cut itself, fire doesn't burn itself, light doesn't illumine itself. It's always an endless mystery to itself. I don't know. And this I don't know, uttered in the infinite interior of the spirit, this I don't know is the same thing as I love, I let go, I don't try to force or control. It's the same thing as humility. And so the Upanishads say, if you think that you understand Brahman, you do not understand, and you have yet to be instructed further. If you know that you do not understand, then you truly understand. For the Brahman is unknown to those who know it, and known to those who know it not. And the principle is that any time you, as it were, voluntarily let up control, in other words, cease to cling to yourself, you have an access of power. Because you're wasting energy all the time in self-defense, trying to manage things, trying to force things to conform to your will. The moment you stop doing that, that wasted energy is available. And therefore, you are, in that sense, having that energy available, you are one with the divine principle. You have the energy. When you're trying, however, to act as if you were God, that is to say, you don't trust anybody and you're the dictator and you have to keep everybody in line, you lose the divine energy. Because what you're doing is simply defending yourself. So then, the principle is, the more you give it away, the more it comes back. Now you say, I don't have the courage to give it away. I'm afraid. And you can only overcome that by realizing you better give it away because there's no way of holding on to it. The meaning of the fact, you see, that everything is dissolving constantly, that we're all falling apart, we're all in a process of constant death, and that the worldly hope men set their hearts upon turns ashes, or it prospers, and like snow upon the desert's dusty face, lighting a little hour or two is gone. You know, all that Omar Khayyam jazz. You know, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the great globe itself, I, all which it inherit shall dissolve, and like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. All falling apart. Everything is. That's the great assistance to you. See, that fact that everything is in decay is your helper. That is allowing you that you don't have to let go because there's nothing to hold on to. It's achieved for you, in other words, by the process of nature. So once you see that you just don't have a prayer, and it's all washed up, and that you will vanish and leave not a rack behind, and you really get with that, suddenly you find you have the power. This enormous access of energy. But it's not power that came to you because you grabbed it. It came in entirely the opposite way.